ESD Youth Conference. We would now like to officially open the conference. And first of all, I would like to ask Mr. Masaaki Akaike, Parliamentary Vice Minister of Education, Culture, Sports, Science and Technology of Japan, to offer his welcome remarks on behalf of Minister Hakubun Shimomura, who unfortunately could not make it today. So, Mr. Akaike, please.
Good morning. おはようございます。Allow me to make a few remarks at the opening of the UNESCO ESD Youth Conference. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Japan. Gathered here in Okayama today are 50 young people from 69 countries around the world. We recruited participants for this conference from around the world, and 5,038 young people from 180 countries applied. I think this means three things. First, throughout the world, many young people are tackling ESD with the same aspirations. Second, you seek a bench to exchange information on ESD activities. Third, young people around the world are paying close attention to the UNESCO World Conference on ESD. You are all representative young leaders working on aggressive promotion on ESD in many fields in your countries. I understand that during this conference, you will draft a youth statement and announce into the world. I have high expectations for the statement you will draft as ESD professionals in various fields. I would also like you to take this valuable opportunity to deepen your friendship with colleagues participating from countries around the world who have similar ESD aspirations. I hear that self-introduction and exchange of opinion already started via online discussion even before the conference. I hope exchanging opinions and sharing expenses among colleagues from different geographical regions and specialties will lead ideas about future activities and to the building of a global network of young ESD practitioners. You will also go on participant in the UNESCO World Conference on ESD in Nagoya City in Aichi Prefecture next week. I would like each of you to be a public relations ambassador and convey to those at the World Conference the achievement made here in Okayama. UNESCO clearly considers young people to be important stakeholders, and I expect you to serve as an important driving force for ESD at the World Conference and afterwards. In conclusion, let me that's this opportunity to express my gratitude for all those involved in the Goi Peace Foundation and the City of Okayama for their effort to make this conference a reality. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Akaike. And now, I would like to ask Her Excellency Mrs. Irina Bokova to offer her opening remarks. Thank you.
Dear Mr. Vice Minister of Education, Science, Sports, Technology of Japan, dear young friends, dear Koichiro Matsura, Director General of UNESCO, dear Ambassador Monchi, Permanent Delegate of Japan to UNESCO, I'm very honored to be here with you this morning to open this Education for Sustainable Development Youth Conference. And of course, allow me once again to thank the Ministry of Education, Culture, Sport, Science and Technology of Japan, the Japanese National Commission, the City of Okayama and the Goi Peace Foundation for organizing this so important conference. And most of all, let me thank you, the young delegates that have come with us here today. I say young delegates, but I believe you're young leaders of sustainable development. 52 of you, young men and women who have been selected from thousands, as I was told, young people from 180 countries. And I believe you have been chosen precisely because you have outstanding achievements in the education for sustainable development. And you stand out in your leadership, you stand out in your commitment, and I believe you stand out also in your vision. This is a vision of a better future for all, a vision where human rights, human dignity of every woman and man are nurtured, a vision where a planet whose boundaries are respected, whose diversity is safeguarded, and whose well-being is for the future generation today and for tomorrow secured. And I believe that this vision has never been more relevant than today, because we know how much the planet is under pressure. We know how much climate change affects our daily lives, and particularly the daily lives of the poorest of the poor. And I believe we have no choice. We must change the way we think, the way we act, the way we understand progress, the way we understand growth. We must change the way we produce and we consume, and also the way how we live together. We at UNESCO are more than convinced that political regulations and financial incentives are important and essential for safeguarding the environment, for shaping a more sustainable future. But they are not enough. We need to craft new ways of seeing the world, new ways of thinking and rethinking our responsibilities towards each other, and responsibilities towards the planet, towards the environment, towards the biodiversity, and also the way of acting and behaving as global citizens. And this is why education is so essential. As the bedrock for sustainability, education that shapes new values, skills, and knowledge. And we need green schooling, we need green economies, and we need green societies. And this is, I believe, the inspiration of the United Nations Decade on Education for Sustainable Development that started in 2005 and ends this year, 2014, that was sponsored strongly by Japan and led by UNESCO. Let me here pay tribute to my predecessor, Koichiro Matsura, who is with us here today, who was, I would say, at the forefront of the crafting of this decade of education for sustainable development and has led for the first 5 years with inspiration this so important mandate of UNESCO taken forward also by you, by the young people. And here we are at the end of the decade, where in Aichi, Nagoya, we will take stock of the decade's achievements at our big UNESCO World Conference on Education for Sustainable Development. And also, it is a time to think for the future, to look forward, to craft a new, ambitious agenda to follow. And I believe it is particularly important today when governments, international community, the private sector, civil society, academic institutions are thinking intensively, working together to craft a new sustainable development agenda to follow 2015. And here, when we at UNESCO are leading the global debate about education and putting forward the future sustainable development goal of education, education for sustainable development takes a central place in this new global agenda. I believe there are two aspects here in these efforts we are making. On one side, of course, we are crafting a global vision for the education in the 21st century, because we believe education is essential, is the most powerful force for sustainability. Education is the way to connect the dots between the social, the economic, and the environmental dimensions of sustainable development. And I believe this is my second point, why education is so important. And this was the important message, I would say the core message from the outcome document of the Rio Plus 20 conference that was held in 2012. And you all know the expression, think global, act local. Education, in this particular case, I believe is the best way to act at the local, but also at the national, regional, and global levels, and to weave all these several levels together. This calls for education that is relevant to the needs of the 21st century, that empowers learners, that nurtures new forms of global citizenship and solidarity. And let me mention here something important. We are celebrating the 70th anniversary of the organization next year of UNESCO. UNESCO has been crafted in 1945 in order to bring peace to the world, in order to be sustainability also to the world. And here is where UNESCO, as a global intellectual leader, as a moral leader of humanity, is crafting new ideas, is launching new ideas. This was the idea about education for all, launched in the year 2000. Now we are embarking on a very beautiful journey of crafting the education for the 21st century. And this is where the notion of global citizenship is coming at the forefront of this thinking. And when we speak about the global citizenship notion, idea, thinking, this is also part of what stems out of the decade of education for sustainable development. Because we believe that this thinking should be embedded deeply into education systems in different countries. And this was also part of the initiative of the Secretary General of the United Nations, Global Education First initiative, which UNESCO is steering forward. And this is where we should build on. We need to do much more. First, we need your ideas. We need your leadership. We need your projects. We need your vision. I see the list of profiles prepared for this forum as a very inspiring list, highlighting your activities in the world, from Madagascar to Argentina, from community learning centers to game platforms. I see this in your commitments you have submitted to the Global Action Program, and that will be launched next week at the World Conference in Nagoya. And I see this also in the dynamism of the associated network, schools network platform, a family of more than 10,000 schools in more than 180 countries that are also pioneers of sustainability. I just am coming to this meeting out of a very inspiring meeting of these young boys and girls from associated network schools. And at the end, allow me to say one thing. Don't wait for us. Just forge ahead. Continue with your vision. Continue with your activities. Continue with your programs. Continue with your projects. Do everything that you can in order to make change happen in your lives, in the lives of your families, of your communities, of your countries. Lead the world. This is where young people can lead the world. And I believe the world then will follow you. And I pledge to you today, on behalf of UNESCO, that UNESCO will support you in every way we can. You will see next week, you will be with us during this important World Conference on Education for Sustainable Development, because I believe with you jointly, we can build the vision for the future. And I invite you also next year to the 9th UNESCO Youth Forum in 2015. Next year, there is an important conference that will be happening in December, the Paris Conference on Climate Change, the so-called COP21 conference. And this is where the expectation of the world after the conference in Lima, in Peru, in December this year, the expectations, the hopes of the world is that there will be important agreement to be adopted at the Paris Conference on climate change. And this is where our work also will continue strongly. Our Leaders Forum, our Youth Forum next year will be dedicated to sustainability and to climate change. And this is why your ideas, your projects, your practical work is so much needed. Because unless we change the way we think, the way we live, the way we produce, the way we consume, change will not happen. Agreements are important, and this is where the political commitment comes. But then the real work starts of how we implement these agreements in practice. This is our role and responsibility of UNESCO. This is the responsibility of the governments, but it is so much also the responsibility of the civil society and of young leaders. So this is where you will lead. Once again, thank you for your commitment. Be relentless, don't stop, believe in what we are doing, and this is the only way change will happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Spokova, for that inspiration. At this time, I'm afraid Mr. Akaike must make an exit for his next commitment, so we see him off with applause. Mrs. Spokova must also leave soon to meet her next commitments, but she has kindly offered to spend a little time to have a conversation with the youth. And so, if she has a little time. Thank you very much. So we invite Mrs. Spokova up on stage again, and she would be happy to take your comments or questions for another few minutes. Okay. So, from the youth, let's take this rare opportunity. If you would like to say something, have questions, please raise your hand. We'll take from few of you and then have Mrs. Spokova answer that all together.
Thank you for your very, very good. Thank you for your very nice words. I was wondering, involving youth in the whole transition towards a more sustainable future. This is a one-time conference. how, in your opinion, could youth be continuously involved in shaping the future in a more prominent way than currently is the situation worldwide?
Shall we take a few more and then, or would you like to answer? No?
I can answer immediately,
Okay.
not
Yes.
to take notes.
Yes.
I'm happy I have 10 minutes to engage with you. I believe this should not be a one-only event, and including our big conference on education for sustainable development. Of course, big conferences and advocacy is very important because we set the stage. We adopt some strategic vision, we adopt plans of action. But what is most important is the future work. That's why I said that we set the stage, but what is important is the follow-up. And I believe, particularly with the young leaders, there is so much opportunity today with the new technologies to engage, to create platforms to exchange ideas. Our experience at UNESCO is that every 2 years we have youth fora. They precede our general conference, and the last 2 years, and particularly a year ago, we established an online platform of the participants of our youth conference where they not only exchange ideas, but they started joint projects, they started working together, they started moving also with the expanding networks, and I believe this is very important nowadays. We say, particularly in the area of sustainability, of climate change, of biodiversity, of all the, I would say, notion about changing environments, protection of the environment, there is no boundaries. There are no boundaries. Loss of biodiversity does not know physical boundaries among states. Climate change does not know boundaries. And this is where I think youth engagement is so important. You may be in a country in the north and helping a country in the south, or working together, or ideas coming from the south can be very useful also for you in the north, as we say in very relative terms. So new technologies give a huge opportunity for you to act together. So meet here, exchange ideas, but don't stop this. Continue in the same vein of working together.
Okay, thank you. Next. And then.
Thank you. I have 2 questions. The first one is, with the coming to an end of this decade of sustainable development, I don't know if it's too early to ask what the theme for the next decade is with UNESCO, and also, is UNESCO using its influence in any way to affect ESD in more traditional settings of education? So I know that there's a lot we're doing with innovative forms of ESD, but in more traditional educational settings like schools and universities, is UNESCO using its influence in any way to impact ESD?
Well, in fact, this is precisely what we want to see happening. We are taking stock of this decade and we are drafting a plan of action for the future. What we are doing is precisely this, to have education for sustainable development deeply embedded in education systems. It is not just a one event. It is not something that is accompanying schooling. It is not just for the additional, as I said, complementary kind of a knowledge. We think it should be part of education systems. And that is why when I mentioned that we are designing the future education development goals, currently we have the Millennium Development Goals, the 8 Millennium Development Goals adopted by the United Nations in the year 2000 that are ending in 2015. The second Millennium Development Goal is education for all. The emphasis, of course, is on the primary education, on access to education. Let's get kids in school. Now we are shifting. We will do also this. Unfinished business has to be done. But we are expanding. We are looking at quality education, and we are looking also at what type of education we need for the 21st century. The concept of global citizenship is where it comes. And one of the targets of this new goal that hopefully will be adopted next year is education for sustainable development. I think the way forward we have passed UNESCO with partners, with the global community, is quite impressive. It's huge. If we think of where we started, and I think yesterday Mr. Koichiro Matsura was mentioning the beginning of this education of sustainable development and the leadership of UNESCO and of Japan at those times, it was, I would say, quite modest concept that started in the 80s, in the first report of the United Nations of sustainability. But after that, it evolved into a global concept about education. And we don't see the future of this so important part of the education system if we don't put it deeply embedded into, as you said, traditional education system. This should be part of the education system of every country. And here, I think we are expanding. We are working all across the board with governments, with different countries from all parts of the world. And when we put this as a goal for the future, I think there won't be a single country in the world where it will not be incorporated into the education systems.
Okay, we have time for just one more, I'm afraid. So you have been raising your hand.
Dear Mr. Bokova, thank you very much for your speech. And my name is Alexander. I come from Moldova, represent organization MEGA. And to set the scene, maybe you have heard about such concept as collaborative and shared economy with 3D printing, digital manufacturing, and so on, that has a huge potential for sustainable development. So the question is, if UNESCO integrates such global megatrends into ESD, and if yes, how it is done? Thank you.
Well, you mentioned apart from one part of the business models, as you said, there are so many, I would say, interesting business models of creating a green economy, as we say. And next year, I mentioned the COP21 conference in Paris on climate change, where hopefully governments will adopt a new agreement on climate change, reducing emissions and keeping the increase in the global temperature within the limits of 2 degrees. And this is, of course, all very important. But this has happened, I believe, if it is accompanied by two important, as we say, ambitions and trends. On one side, the private sector also definitely should be there, because having a new business models of establishing a green economy is critical. And we at UNESCO will be organizing a huge private sector conference for climate change next year in May, which will precede the conference of the governments, where I believe all these business models and green economy will be discussed. But here comes also the second aspect of this important ambition. Green economy should be accompanied by green societies. Green economy can be sustained only if we have also green societies. And when we speak green societies, this is where education for sustainable development comes, because this is how we should also change the way we consume and the way we relate to the nature, the way we relate also to each other, the way we preserve biodiversity, and the way we implement the important agreements of governments. So I see this on two legs. On one side, of course, we have the business models, the green economy, but on the other side, we have to have green societies. And this is where your role is so critical.
Thank you very much. I am afraid that's time for all, but we thank Mrs. Bogova very much for taking the time to answer the youth questions.
Yeah, thank you also.
So please give another round of applause as the Director General makes her exit. Thank you. So with a little change of settings here, next in the program is our keynote speaker, but let's wait for the setting to be ready. Now it is my pleasure to introduce to you our keynote speaker, Ms. Sally Asker. Sally is the director of the organization Insight Sustainability, a consultancy undertaking ESD-related work in the Asia-Pacific region. She is also a member of the International Steering Group for the ESD World Conference in Aichi, Nagoya. So Sally, would you take the podium?
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, and ESD friends, I'd like to commence with something a little bit different. I'd like to invite you all to join me in a short relaxation exercise. I'd like you to close your eyes, or, if you prefer, simply let the gaze of your eyes soften. In this relaxed state, please join me in taking 2 deep breaths. Now let your feet connect you to where you currently are. You have chosen to be present here in Okayama. Let your mind take you back to all the places around the world that you've travelled from to be here. Think about the inner strengths and leadership you have displayed that have brought you all here today. Take a moment to appreciate being part of such a strong collective of talented ESD change agents together here in this unique part of the small blue planet we call Earth. I invite you to connect and feel the warmth and openness within your hearts, your minds, and your hands. Now please join me in taking another deep breath. And when you're ready, open your eyes and return your focus to the room. And I'd like to welcome you with a renewed, connected, and relaxed perspective. My intention for welcoming you in this way is to encourage you to reorient your focus on where you have come from and your purpose for being here. My name is Sally Asker, and as a member of the UNESCO International Steering Group for the main conference, and also as a fellow ESD youth, ending today, as it's my birthday, I'd like to acknowledge and thank UNESCO, the Ministry of Education, Culture, Sport, Science and Technology of Japan, the Japanese National Commission for UNESCO, the City of Okayama, and of course the Goi Peace Foundation for providing me with this opportunity to address such an accomplished set of current and future ESD champions. In the short space of time, I've been asked to share with you some thoughts on the significance of the World Conference on ESD, and also what is expected of you today at the Youth Conference and afterwards for advancing ESD beyond 2014. I've also been encouraged to sprinkle some inspiration along the way, so I'll see how I go. To date, much of the focus of our education, training and public awareness systems around the globe has not been on education for sustainable development. Rather, it has been on education for development. Now, more than ever, ESD needs to be the purpose of education, not simply a component of education. Education must prepare learners to contribute to sustainable development and combat the global challenges we all face through the promotion of critical thinking, collaborative decision-making, responsibility for today and for tomorrow. All ingredients of global citizenship that enable all of us as learners to transform ourselves and society for a more livable tomorrow. What we do know is we have all the tools and assets at our disposal to harness our inner strengths and make a change. We just need the will and a renewed vision of education to help shift the gear. The principles of ESD, together with the competencies ESD promotes, are the key enablers to help us shift this gear. ESD can be the change agent. I ask each of you, how can we move towards sustainable development and meet global challenges without education? How can we change as a society without education? Education is an essential component in reaching sustainable development. Now is the time to demonstrate to decision makers at the most senior level that what ESD is doing is quality and has relevance. We need our leaders to advocate for ESD at a global level and become SD literate by integrating ESD into both education agendas and sustainable development agendas. We need to continue our work to change mindsets and create a new perspective for ESD beyond 2014. In this context, your participation here at the Youth Conference and next week at the main conference holds much importance. I'd now like to share some thoughts on the background and significance of the World Conference on ESD. As you are likely aware, to mark the end of the United Nations Decade of Education for Sustainable Development, known as the DESD, which spanned the years 2005 to 2014, the Government of Japan and UNESCO are hosting the World Conference next week. While the conference marks the end of the decade, it is very much a forward-looking event, providing the foundation for post-decade action. During this event, you will all join Ministers of Education, private sector representatives, UN decision makers, ESD experts of formal, informal and non-formal education, training and awareness, media and many other stakeholders. The conference seeks to generate and scale up ESD actions. To support this conference, there will also be the launch of a Global Action Programme, or the GAP, on ESD. The GAP seeks to build on the foundation that has been built over the last 10 years. It seeks to gather momentum and commitments for reorienting our education, training and public awareness systems to address the sustainable development challenges that our regions, our businesses, our communities, family and you as youth face today and in the future. The GAP focuses on 5 priority action areas: advancing policy, integrating sustainability practices into education and training environments, increasing the capacity of educators and trainers, my favourite one, empowering and mobilising youth, and encouraging local communities and municipal authorities to develop community-based ESD programs. The GAP acknowledges that sustainable development cannot be achieved by political agreements, financial incentives or technical solutions alone. It affirms that sustainable development requires change in the way people think and act, and that education plays a crucial role in bringing about this change. A decade is simply not long enough to change behaviours, actions, policies and governments in the magnitude that is required to shift the global gear. And UNESCO alone cannot and does not have the means or mandate to do so alone. It is up to a joint effort between UN member states and every citizen on this globe to make a difference, to rethink and reorient how we interact with our planet. Consequently, the scaling up of ESD actions is required. I'd like to encourage you to familiarise yourselves with the part of the GAP that specifically targets empowering and mobilising youth. The GAP will be launched as an outcome of the main conference to be implemented in a decentralised manner by member states, national and local governments and all stakeholders through their voluntary contributions, partnerships and commitments to it. It will be established for an initial phase of 5 years, after which it will be renewed for extension. Now the exciting bit. Let's focus on what's expected of you at this youth conference and at the main conference and in general for promoting ESD beyond 2014. Commencing with your online exchanges prior to coming here and through meeting in person yesterday, you are no doubt aware that you are here to engage in dialogue and peer learning to enhance your ESD practices, to highlight the contribution of youth to the ESD movement, particularly innovative approaches of youth, to formulate your collective input and recommendations to the World Conference on ESD through your Youth Declaration, through representation at the opening plenary of the main conference, and in the conference workshops. As you're aware, the output of your conference will be a collective youth statement submitted to the World Conference next week. Your statement will seek to align your views and enable you to speak as a united voice at the main conference. We hope that your statement will be referenced by the conference declaration, aptly named the Aceh Nagoya Declaration. While there will be a declaration, the intention is that it will be short and focused, with most attention being given to the launch of the Global Action Programme. Lead-in meetings such as this youth conference can make commitments to catalyse the work of the GAP, and those commitments will form part of the declaration annex. In addition to the GAP and the Aceh Nagoya Declaration, there will be a final report launched on the decade. In all your roles back in your regions and countries, you are the forefront of where education and learning occurs. Bring these stories and learning to life. You are fortunate to be here physically, and there are thousands of other youth doing transformative work around the globe. The image you see are just some of the youth spread across the world who are on your ESD team. These youth, including myself, were at the UNESCO Mid-Decade Conference on ESD held in Bonn in Germany in 2009. Be assured that all of these people and many more support you. When looking at the Global Action Programme, in your preparation for today and next week, critically ask yourself, what can be strategically done to push the ESD agenda further forward? Challenge your thinking and ask, where could youth as actors assist and how? And discuss with your peers, what else is needed to contribute to an effective post-2014 agenda? Today and in the days going forward, think and talk between yourselves and voice these ideas within your youth statement. Importantly, the main conference workshops are your opportunity to ensure youth voices are documented in the conference proceedings and potentially integrated into the GAP. Each workshop will have an official reporter who has been tasked with recording proceedings, and those records will be taken into consideration for the final declaration document as well as the final GAP that will be launched. Don't be an observer, here or in the main conference. You've got this wonderful opportunity. Choose to listen thoughtfully, engage in active dialogue, and strategically aim to make yourselves heard. The informal tea and lunch breaks and excursions next week are your opportunity to create new networks, be it via networking with others from your region or simply swapping some practical ESD stories and sharing cross-cultural inspiration with a stranger. Remember, at the very least, you have a vision for sustainable development in common. Now I'd like to offer some final words of advice. In the following days, try not to get fixated on or frustrated by the label ESD. It is only a label. What is important is to think about the aims and outcomes that ESD strives to promote. You may call it something very different in the region or your country's context. There are many other labels with similar principles and practices for a more sustainable future. Why not put them all in your practitioner toolbox? After all, the goal of all educations, peace education, values education, environmental education, human rights education, and the list goes on, should be sustainable development. ESD is relevant to all, and outside the auspices of UNESCO, it's called many things. What we do know is that collectively, we need to increase people's competencies and equip them with the knowledge and skills to enable them to think and decide and act for a better tomorrow. While your ages span from 18 to 35 years, those particularly in the upper scale of this bracket may no longer consider yourselves strictly as youth. You may indeed have your own children or be mid-career in the context of your country. However, next week, when you look around the main conference, you'll notice that you're quite a bit younger than the majority of people there. While you represent yourselves as ESD experts, in the context of the conference, your voice will be heard as a youth voice. Use this to your advantage. I cannot encourage you enough to grasp this opportunity and make your collective voice count. Youth involvement in the conference is not tokenistic. Youth are included as a major stakeholder, one good reason being that half of the world's population is under 30 years of age, and you are their leaders of tomorrow. Let me leave you with these thoughts that may trigger your own inspiration, help you reflect on ESD in your context and your own strengths as an ESD champion. In the realm of possibilities starts and stops using the limits of your minds and ability to educate, train, and spread awareness within others, to instill the values, ideas, and skills that link knowledge to action to reorient the way we live on the planet. Yes, we must become more resilient in the face of the world's sustainable development challenges, but we must leap forward. From a focus on the problems of today to harnessing our collective strengths, capacity, and influence, to explore what is possible and start creating the future we want, to create a new and inspiring view of sustainability, a future in which we all thrive. It is about mobilising and aligning our communities, focusing on our energy, reducing resistance, contributing to create something extraordinary for tomorrow. As educators, we need to help citizens shift their perspective and actions, from problem solving to possibility, from adjusting today's current model to creating a renewed vision for a sustainable future, from a costs focus to a value focus, from resisting change to embracing change, from focusing on loss to a focus on creation, from lineal thinking to systems thinking, from consumers to citizens, from viewing people as liabilities to viewing people as assets, moving from fear to hope. I encourage you to share your stories today and next week. Bring alive and make your global challenges and potential to do something about them real. Do not accept good enough. Push the agenda for what you and your children want for the future and deserve. As the future is yours to shape, inspire and lead, and I wish you well in your dialogues. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sally Asker, for her inspiration and giving us the context of where this youth conference stands in relation to the World Conference we're attending in Nagoya later on. So, and happy birthday. So, our next guest speaker is Professor Ananta Duriyappa, Director of the UNESCO Mahatma Gandhi Institute of Education for Peace and Sustainable Development. That's MGIEP for short. And remember, we all got the nice black T-shirt yesterday? That was a gift from Professor Duriyappa. Thank you. Please.
Thank you very much. I would think of it as a bribe as we go along. Well, let me start off by thanking the organizers, the Ministry, Education, Culture, Sports, Science and Technology, the Going Peace Foundation, my colleagues at UNESCO as well, for giving me this opportunity to talk a little bit about this institute. I would like to also acknowledge Dr. Matsura, who is also on our board and has been instrumental in setting up this institute right from the very start. And it's done in collaboration with the government of India. So, what I'd like to do today is maybe tell you a little bit about the Institute, telling you what we offer, and we are kind of a new kid in the block because it was only established in 2012. Madam Bokova was there inaugurating with the President of India. So the Indian government puts a lot of emphasis on this. So they take this very seriously, sustainable development, the notion of peace, And what I would like to introduce, and it's already been alluded quite a bit, is the notion of global citizenship. And I'll kind of explain that a little bit as we go along. So what I would like to do is show you a video. But before I go there, I wanted to emphasize a point that Sally had made. It's a huge constituent out there, 1.8 billion. Sally said half. That's 3.5 billion because, of course, we always have definitions of how we like to measure things. But if you just broaden it, that's 3 billion of you. And you are really representing that 3 billion. And so the responsibility is immense. But I want to show a little video. It tells us a little bit. We got a bunch of animators and film producers. They sat with us and listened to us talk. And then they put together this video, an animated video, just to say what we are thinking at MGIP and what we are looking for. So bear with me. It's about 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes. you very much. Now, I'm also learning a lot, taking over the position as a director of MGIP. Now, I've learned for an old dog like me 2 new words. The first one was hashtag. And so what I've been told is we've started this whole campaign, a social media campaign on I'm a global citizen, and I think one of those wristbands that you have. So we already have a convert there. And I was told to do a hashtag I'm a global citizen and start this social media. Now the next new word I learned was something called a selfie. And I was thinking, what is a selfie? And even my kids looked at me and just shook their head and walked away. They didn't explain it to me. So I've been told for you guys to take a selfie and send it off with the hashtag I'm a global citizen. And we're collecting those and putting together on our website. We're really starting this campaign. And as you asked the Director General, is this a one-off? Well, it's definitely not a one-off. It's going to go on for quite some time. But there's still a lot of work to do. There's a huge constituency there that needs to be converted, needs to be on the same wavelengths that we are thinking along. And that's where your responsibility, and I think you are the agents of change. It's much easier to get people to change, especially at that generation, than somebody like me coming and giving a lecture and saying, this is what you should do. And I had the privilege of working with one of that 5 or 6 people right at the end. Unfortunately, she passed away very unexpectedly. But Wangari Maathai was an inspiration to work with, and it's on the ground. And that's what we are also interested. Out of the boxes ideas, but on the ground, on implementation. And that's why we were excited when we read your bios that you people have actually done work on the ground. It's not an academic idea that you have, but you have actually gone ahead and worked on it. So look at our website. There are many things that we are offering, and we would like you to be part of this community. And we are launching a network, what I call a network of networks. It's called YesPeace, and you saw the logo right at the end. And we will be launching it on November 10th at the conference, at a side event, and I hope you will all be there wearing your wristbands. Hopefully we'll start a campaign for the next, not the next decade, but for the next 5 decades, because that's how long I think we're going to need to change the mindset we have established over the last 200 years, if you think about it. So thank you very much.
Good morning. I'm going to start with a selfie myself. That's just okay, done. So now we're going to move to our dialogue groups and discussion groups. So I'd like to link what we've heard today to what we're going to do to the end of the day, and also how the discussion groups will work specifically. So we had our half a day yesterday. It was getting to know each other and also talking a little bit about our vision of the future. So you all invited, including people who were not here yesterday, to look at the visions of the future that they're hanging here on the room. So on your way out to the discussion dialogue groups, you can take a look at it and see how the other ones did their work. So we're going to move to the workshop sessions that I'm going to explain a bit. We're going to have some time here to present the sessions as well. So you have some time to present the work that you've been doing like just right now. We're going to have a session to mobilizing youth. So no one better to know how to mobilize youth than the same generation. So you're going to be a youth-to-youth special conversation that we're going to have. And in the end, we're going to have a wrap-up and kind of agreeing on what's coming out as a youth statement so that can be finally produced and sent to Aichi Nagoya. So this is what we're going to do in the next 2 hours. So we're going to move into 8 different groups. Those groups were divided basically on your profiles and your expertise, so things that you've been doing already. Some of those are from the priority action areas that come from GAP, that was just explained, and some others, well, it was mostly inspired from that, and some others based on your work. So you're going to be divided in those groups, and we're going to show you where you go after that. You pretty much know who is there's going to be a facilitator in your room. You pretty much know who they are. They're going to be there to welcome you and walk through all this process. So this whole process of those 2 hours, they'll be based on this umbrella question, which is the umbrella question also from the World Conference and this stakeholder meeting, which is how can we advance ESD actions beyond 2014? So the GAP is all about that, and our recommendation, so the recommendation of the youth will be towards that as well. So this is the umbrella question. For our conversation, what we're going to have is this guiding questions here. First, it's an opportunity for you as stakeholders, youth. So you're gonna be in the main conference representing youth, but you are youth with lots of experience in things on the ground, things that you've been doing. So there's this opportunity to work with a different kind of box, so you can make recommendations that look fresh, that is showing outside the box thinking for the main conference as well. So you already leaders in what you're doing, and also have this opportunity to bring fresh ideas to the conference. So that's an invitation for the recommendations that will come out of that. So we have 3 guiding questions for those 2 hours. One is, what can we learn from each other's practice and experience? So you're going to be together with other possibly 6 people that they work in similar things that you do. So you've been asked to work on so there was a little homework with the 3 questions, the 3 guiding questions, 3 questions about your work, including challenges, etc. So you're going to have some time to explore this and share your learnings with other people. Then we're going to have, so another guiding question is, how can we scale up ESD in our thematic area? So now you're going to be talking about specifically your area, and how can you scale up that work that you're already doing, looking at the challenges that you face and also other people in your group will face. And finally, what are the 3 strategic recommendations that should be included in the youth statement? So a youth statement is, you said it's a 4-page, short, concise, but also with a lot of power that will represent your voice and also represents the voice of the youth for the main conference. And we're focusing on, for each thematic area, 3 strategic recommendations, and obviously we can find lots of recommendations to talk about. We want to finalize by focusing on the 3 main ones that we think will empower and advance ESD action the most for the future. So you and your group will decide what's the best way to use those 2 hours. So it's up to you. We have a recommended agenda so as a guiding process for you, and this will be available in the rooms, so you can look at it again. But you can decide to move it a little bit. So what we thought was, you're going to have the presentation of the points that you've already written about your work and etc. 3 minutes, and there's going to be some time also for questions and comments from other people from your group. So that's an opportunity to share and get to know each other, and now your professional work and what you've been doing on ESD. And so we're expecting like 45 minutes for that. And on the other 2 ones, so how we can scale ESD actions and what are the 3 strategic recommendations, then there's a online discussion that happened before. We have a drafting committee, so each one of the groups will have 1 member that actually collected everything that was said on the ESD, on the online conference, and put together a small doc and written piece. So that's just so there's 5 minutes to present that. So your drafting committee member will present that so you know what's been discussed, and you can use that as you wish. You can use that as a starting point. You can start fresh and refer to that, so you can do whatever you want. So it's just an asset, it's something else that includes your voice, but also includes the voice of other people who could not be here, but were interested in, they join in to give their inputs and opinions. And the last thing, so then there's the dialogue for talking about recommendations, what's strategic, what would be the top 3 ones that we want to include in a use statement. It's about 55 minutes, and then there's a decision-making process to decide, oh, those are the ones that we're gonna use, and also facilitators will explain that in more detail, how you put together a presentation. So we're gonna come back here after lunch, and you have 7 minutes to present your piece, so your 3 key points and 3 recommendations. Yeah? At the end of those 3 hours, the outcomes, so that will be the presentations after lunch, will be you presented 3 strategic recommendations. So basically, those are the 3 ones, and why did you choose them? So there are many possibilities why those 3. So what was the process behind it? You have 7 minutes to do that, and you mean like the whole group can be up here, just one person. You can choose how to do it, as long as it's 7 minutes. And what's going to be presented to everyone else is just one slide with the 3 points. So that's what's going to be up here. Yeah. So we won't have like a lot of slide presentations or anything. It's just the 3 points, very concise. And you have 7 minutes to go around and talk about the 3 points, how you got there, why did you decide to get them, etc., etc. Apart from that, you're going to also be invited to write for each recommendation about 50 words, so approximately 50 words. So that will be used by the drafting committee later on to write your recommendation, like beyond just the bullet points, like beyond just the key ideas, a little bit of what it's behind, yeah, of each one. So you're going to have 50 words, and as you can see at the back of your program, that will be structured in 150 words, so 3 recommendations each for each of the discussion sessions. Yeah, so that will be the input of the drafting committee, and we're going to ask you to trust your drafting committee member in the wording of the process. So you don't actually need to make this like a perfect in content or not even perfect in English. We're going to have that worked tomorrow in the drafting committee, and then it's going to be proofread, so it's going to be changed in terms of words. But the main ideas should be written there, because that's going to be the input for the drafting committee to do their work. See if there's anything else. And I think that's it. Yes.
Okay, so Augusta has just explained to you, given you an introduction of what you will be doing after this in the breakout parallel sessions. But here, this comes to the close of the opening plenary session, and we would like to thank again our speakers, Sally Asker and Professor Driagapa. Thank you very much.
So what's going to happen now is we're going to have a 10-minute break, so like a biologic toilet break. There's refreshments outside, and also you find the way to your room. So the rooms are here, also in your papers, and it's also going to be outside. So find your room in about 10 minutes. So we'll start 11:15, and we'll have 2 hours to do this work. So 1:45, is that it? 1:45, yes, of course. 1:45, we're going to be moving to lunchtime, which is going to be on the 8th floor where we were yesterday. So your facilitator can answer your questions, and have a great 2 hours. Thank you.